everyone, welcome back to another week of Masterclasses. Today is the day that the 13.19b patch was dropped, so it's important to know what the changes are and exactly what comps are best to play on this new patch. So if you are interested in this, then continue watching. If you're interested in attending the live masterclasses, click on the link in the description to join the Training Grounds Discord. And without further ado, we will get into it. So as I mentioned, it's the B patch today. We'll talk about the major changes of what exactly is different in the meta. And then 3 general comps we'll be looking at today are Ionia Vanquisher Flex, Azir Strategist Flex, and Neeko Invoker's Flex. These are the 3 most general comps that have a lot of flexibility in them and are not exactly set in stone. Maybe they're playing around 2 to 3 core units, but everything around will just be dependent on your roll down, augments, and items. Okay, so let's get into what exactly changed. What is the meta looking like now? So this is the B patch notes that were released by Riot, and there's a lot of changes, some nerfs, some buffs, but essentially one of the major overall changes is the nerfing of 1-cost rerolls. So Cho'Gath reroll has now been double nerfed because 13.19 was nerfed and now he's nerfed again. Smear got nerfed in this new B patch as well. So a lot of these 1-cost reroll compositions, they were nerfed, the main champions. However, there are some more 2 to 3 cost rerolls and some buffs to 4 costs. So now instead of 1-cost reroll meta, it's more looking at 2 to 3 cost reroll meta. For example, units like Ashe, we'll get into that on the next upcoming slides. And the 4-cost meta, Azir is back because of his damage buffs. Aphelios got another buff, so now you don't only have to play him from a Piltover angle. And then Fiora got a nerf. So there's a lot of new updates towards 4 costs, and it's no longer just everyone picking a 1 cost at the very start of the game and choosing that as their reroll comp. So these are, I talked about Cho'Gath, Samira, also the augment double trouble. So this really favored rogues, so your Graves. You could also play double trouble Samira, double trouble Cho'Gath. So once again, this is a nerf towards the reroll comps. Then combat augments, not specifically, but challengers really benefited from these combat augments. There were nerfs, so gifts, long distance pals, and tons of stats. These are now nerfed, and challengers is no longer as strong as they were, along with the Fiora nerf. So challengers, it's maybe about high B, A tier, but it's definitely no longer S tier or win out if you hit that Fiora to cast it 2 and you have your 3 combat augments. So moving on to the buffs, Vanquisher's got a big buff in 13.19. Here, although there's no actual direct buff towards Vanquisher, so this Xayah and Nyla, there's no nerf to them as well. Apart from Stolen Vitality, which is the Vanquisher healing augments, which was actually a pretty substantial nerf. Azir, as I mentioned, he's back because of his damage buff, and also because the other 4-cost units like Fiora was nerfed and the 1-cost rerolls were nerfed. There's been some buffs to Neeko and Ixtal, so we'll talk about that as our last comp today. And as I mentioned with Aphelios, so it's not only your Piltover into level 7 Aphelios, cash out, or level 8 Aphelios, and you go from there. So those are main changes. Basically, we're now looking into more of a 4-cost meta with some still 2 to 3 cost rerolls like Rek'Sai, and no longer your 1-cost rerolls. So that's the major changes. We're going to move on to now the more specific comps to expect on 13.19b. The first one being Ionia Vanquisher Flex. So Ionia Vanquisher, as you might have guessed, includes both Ionia and Vanquisher. And basically, these comps are physical damage, right? Our main 2 units that we are focusing around is Nyla and Xayah. Special shout out to Ashe, but that's dependent on a +1 augment, +1 Ionia, so we'll talk about that on the next slides. But essentially, this is a front to back. You have your front line, you have your 2 main damage carriers that do physical damage. So what this means is you need some form of Sunder. So this is Armor Shred. Being able to reduce the enemy's armor so you can do more physical damage is exactly what you need. So this can either be in Last Whisper on your Xayah. If you're playing in Ashe, you can Last Whisper the Ashe. And if you have a tanky Shen with already Bramble +1, then you can maybe put Evan Shroud on him. So this is your generic level 8 Ionia Vanquisher board without any crests or any crowns. However, if you do get a Ionia +1, which is ideal, this opens up many different angles. For example, if you have a lot of early Ashes and you have like Xayah items. However, it's like early into the game. Then you could reroll Ashe, stay level 6, get that Ashe 3-star. It's going to be Ionia Emblem, Deathblade for raw AD, and then either a Last Whisper, Guard Breaker, or Giant Slayer. But I think Last Whisper is best because of Ashe's ability. It can hit the entire board, and you'll roll for your 3-star set as well. This is just a variation. You could play your Sejuani to pair for Freljord, and then you also have an extra Vanquisher slot. So that's if you have your early Ashes or even an Econ augment, then you go for the Ashe 3-star. However, if you have more of like Bruiser or just a lot of bows and you don't have a lot of early Ashes or Econ, then you could just bypass the Ashe 3, put the Ionia emblem on the Nyla instead, give her a RFC for some range and also some form of healing. If you already have healing, then you don't need your BT or Hodge. You could just go for Titans instead. And then you put your actual like AD carry items on your backline Xayah, which is going to be Deathblade, Last Whisper, Guardbreaker, Hodge, along these lines. Make sure that when you're playing Vanquisher, you're not building Infinity Edge. Vanquishers have built-in Infinity Edge, and they're just by playing the trait, their abilities are able to crit. So make sure you're not building any Infinity Edges. However, you are building crit items to synergize with the Vanquisher trait. The last point is you could itemize your Jhin. I've seen 3-star Jhins and itemizing him with like Gunblade, Runons, Guardbreaker. However, the unit itself is pretty inconsistent. There's a lot of times where he can just auto attack to kill. However, his cast animation is very long. So just keep that in mind if you choose to go for that angle. Okay, with some augments to take for Ionia Vanquisher, Scoped Weapons is amazing. Not only does it increase the range of Ashe's arrows, as her ult does, along with Xayah, it's particularly good on Nyla, as you no longer really need RFC, and you can opt that for a different damage item. Stolen Vitality, although nerfed, it was a substantial nerf. I think maybe it was like 1.3% to 1, so that is like still quite a bit. It's still okay, and if you have no other combo augments to take in your option, then it still applies very well to Vanquishers. Ionia Crest and Crown, as you can see from these stats, although this is pre-patch 13.19b, it will be dropping in a couple hours. Ionia Crest is still amazing, as you can see from the stats. Sentinel Spirit will buff up all of your Ionias, and then any generic combat augments like Gifts of the Fallen, Long Distance Pals, tons of stats. Although these still got nerfed, they're just still good combat augments that will boost the power of your board. Okay, so that's Ionia Vanquisher. Next one that I want to talk about is Azir. So Azir now is a magic damage composition. We went from our Last Whispers, we went from our Deathblades to now our Shivs and our like blue buffs. So this is a front to back magic damage composition. This is your generic board that you'll have on level 7. Very easy to get units. The only 4 costs here are Nasus and Azir. So even if you do low roll your roll down, then at least you can still formulate somewhat of a strong board. So this is what one of the basic ones look like. I've seen before there are Azir buffs on his spell damage, so now he does more damage, which is great. The overall comp flexes around Azir and Nasus, and there's a lot of different ways to play. You could play with 4 Juggernauts if you have Aatrox, any Bastions if you end up hitting Shen 2 in your roll down, Vertical Strategist, especially if you get a strat +1, because 5 Strategist is very good. And then even Bilgewater, you could go for your MF3, and especially if you hit a Gangplank, then it'll be very easy to play 3 Bilgewater with Nautilus and Misfortune. Because we're playing a magic damage composition, we do require some form of shred, so we're no longer looking at Sunder, we need shred, so some magic resist reduction. The best item and way to get this is from having Shiv on your Azir. Azir really benefits from attack speed, and Shiv gives him attack speeds, a bit of starting mana, and the ability to consistently shred the enemy team. In regards of who to ascend with Shurima, you'll have 2 out of 2, maybe even 4 out of 4 if you have Shurima +1, and then you add a K'Sante or in a Fury. You're always going to be ascending your Nasus if he's itemized. Eventually you will be putting items on your Nasus because he's going to be your main tank. So once he is itemized, make sure to ascend him. All you have to do is take Nasus off of the board onto your bench and then put him back. And because he is your most recently fielded unit, the game will register that he will be the one to ascend after 8 seconds. Make sure that you're building Bramble, because in the previous slide I was talking about how important and how good Vanquishers are. Having that reduction in critical strike damage is crucial, so we are building Bramble Vest on our main tanks. Okay, we're talking about some best in slot here. So Azir, you want 2 attack speed items. So as I mentioned, Shiv, Nashers, these are probably your best. You could also do RFC. RFC is good. Rageblade, I would not do unless you have Zhonya's. If you have Zhonya's, then that guarantees that Azir will be able to survive a long time and really stack up your Rageblade stacks. But without it, I would just say probably Shiv, Nashers +1. That +1 could be Gunblade, Archangels, or like Rabadons. Anything but Jewel Gauntlet. Don't build Jewel Gauntlet. The first one is your 4 Azir version, 4 Juggernaut Azir version. Basically, you only want to play 4 Juggernaut if you have Aatrox. If you don't have Aatrox, then this is basically going to be a Set or a Darius, and neither of these units are very good or fit very well in this board, and you don't want to be playing like 2 dead units. Warwick is already a semi-dead unit unless it's very good mod, like Zon mod for Silco. So this is an example. And then as mentioned, Bastion, if you do end up hitting your Shen on your roll down and you have a Tark 2, then definitely play 2 Bastion, and it just adds more frontline. And yeah. So that is Azir best in slot and what these boards are. Nasus, as I mentioned, you really need Bramble Vest against these Vanquishers. And then your +2 is just lobby dependent. So Stoneplate is always good. Declaw, if there are magic damage compositions in the game, or even a Redemption is good. You want to be putting, you ideally want to be putting your your supportive tank items. So your Redemptions, your Spark, your Sunfire Cape on your secondary tank. Not on your Nasus, but sometimes you have no choice. So yeah, this is, you're going to normally be rolling down on level 7 for these boards. So this is either going to be 3-5 if you're super rich but low HP, or super rich and like win streaking, or on 4-1 right after Wolves. So you want to make sure that you know these variations. There's still many more, but these are just some of the more basic and easy ones to hit. You want to make sure that you know these, so then when you are rolling down, you are able to formulate your strongest board and have something that will start helping you win rounds after you're rolling. Once you've stabilized on level 7, then you can start going level 8. And once you've stabilized on level 8, then you can go level 9 on stage 5 or stage 6. Okay, some augments to take for Azir. So Azir is extremely flexible. There's no specific augment that you require for this board to function well, and basically everything helps. So binary airdrop is extremely good because some of these units, they only require 2 items. For example, Azir is like Shiv, Nashers +1, Nasus is Bramble +2. So there's a lot of cases where you could just put 1 or 2 main items on units and they'll benefit from the third one. Like Silco, it will be Blue Buff and Morello, or Blue Buff and Gunblade if you already have healer reduction. So binary airdrop is amazing. What the Forge is great. Azir uses actually not Azir. Silco uses almost all of the like AP or magic damage. So Manazane, Zhonya's, Deathfire Grasp. Azir is great with Sniper's Focus, Zhonya's, and then you can put your tank items on your Nasus. So very good as well. Any generic combat augment always helps in any comp. And then any +1s that help with this composition or strategists, so you can end up getting 5 strategists, which is super good. If you have Juggernaut +1, then you could easily hit your 4 Juggernauts by dropping, let's say the Zon mod is not very good. We could drop this Warwick, play a better unit, maybe like a Scion, Juggernaut him, or Juggernaut your Jarvan, and we're just playing up a unit. And then Shurima +1 is very good if you're able to play like a Kisante, or if you already have Aatrox, you can add Nefiri for your 2 Darken, and you'll have your 4 Shurima there. This is your capped out level 9 Azir board, so make sure you have your Aatrox 2, you're able to play Heimerdinger, and then depending on whether you already have a lot of frontline on here, so I would not recommend repair. You'll probably end up going like 1 Goldo if you hit Heimerdinger relatively early, and then either like a Shrinko or Meccano if you have no Shred yet, or no healing reduction. Just gonna take a quick look at the comments. Yeah, okay, no problem. And the very last one, so Neeko Invokers is the new comp. This is what your early game is going to look like. These are your main units that you're essentially going to be playing around against. This is still a front to back composition, and it's regarding sustain and stalling the fight. So ideal Ixtals to play this comp on, or Wood. Wood is the best. You can start stacking up your frontline Neeko really early, just from having your Neeko and your Milio. You can even play a Kiana early, and then start stacking up your Tark as well with that HP. Ice is good. With Ice, I would opt into building more of damage items for Neeko because she does not require as much tank with Ice. She'll have the aggro drop and able to do a lot of damage to those who surround her in the front. And then Stone is really good for your damage reduction and your CC immunity. This is a magic damage composition, so previously like the Azir, we want to be having Shred, so anything like a Spark, which is extremely good on Neeko, or a Shiv on like a Soraka or Emilio, depending on who we're not 3-starring and itemizing. And then for this comp, we're going to be slow rolling on level 6 for Soraka 3, and then going level 7 for our Neeko 3. So this is what our generic board looks like. We can add extra units. So before we had 2 Bastion, 2 Invoker, we could add 2 more Invokers for 4. So Shen plays a key part in this. Shen is both Invoker and Bastion. So we could do Shen plus Kassadin for 4 Bastion, and we could do Shen plus Karma for 4 Invoker. It's very flexible, this composition. If you have a lot of early Milios, then you might end up just itemizing Milio instead, going for Milio 3. And then any of these units, like your Milio, Soraka, Karma, they basically use the same items. It's like blue buff or a Shojin, and then Archangels, Gunblade, Jewel Gauntlets. Any of these are fine. For example, if you hit a lot of Karmas, then you could carry your Karma with your extra blue buff, or just your Soraka. Any of this is fine. And eventually you're going to cap out by playing your RE2 and having a Hybridinger with Repair in the front. So some augments that really help your Neeko board. Loving Invocation. Whenever an Invoker casts, your team gets AP, like stacking AP, so that's great because you're going to be stalling. It synergizes extremely well with this board. Rejuvenating Flames also really synergizes with that stalling. Having that extra health regen for the entire team and health regen for that specific unit on the Hex is extremely good. Because we're all playing a reroll composition, any reroll augments like Trade Sector, Pandora's Bench, any of this is good on a roll. And then last but not least, any generic combat augment. However, those combat augments that are more catered towards stalling, so like Contagion for long paced or like slow paced fights, or Infusion is extremely good in this specific composition. So that's all. Final tips for this upcoming patch. Because your 1-cost rerolls have been nerfed, there's going to be less players just opening early game or having weak boards early game because they're going to be like rerolling on level 4. So what this means is there may be now stronger boards earlier or just throughout the game, so the lobby tempo may be higher, which means more damage is done, and you will have to play a little bit more, not aggressive, but the tempo of the lobby just may be faster now. Remember that Vanquishers have built-in Infinity Edge, so do not build Infinity Edge on any Vanquisher unit, but do build crit items like Lost Whisper, Hodge, Guardbreaker. Even Quicksilver Sash on units like Nyla is acceptable. And last but not least, something to touch upon, so Azir, remember Azir is like a stall magic damage composition, so he's not a burst. He's not like a bursty comp, so don't build like Jewel Gauntlet. Rabadon's is okay, but you prefer to have like any assistive or scaling items, so like Shiv, Archangels. These are much better than just pure raw damage from that. Like a bursty comp like a Vel'Koz composition would utilize much better. So that's all for patch 13.19b. Of course, this is the first day of the patch, so things might change. However, this is our first glance at the patch, and we believe that these will be the compositions that are good to play. So good luck in everyone's climb. If you have any questions, leave them down into the comment section below. I'll be happy to answer them, and have a great rest of the day.